Sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds good, man. Yeah.
Let's go. We'll let it ring for a little 20, 30 seconds. Hey. Looks like we're getting people to join in. Thank you guys, everyone. It is Thursday show. Oh, there you go, Jerry. Thank you guys, everyone, for joining us tonight. It is the Thursday show. Lots of news from Washington, D.C., all the way to California to break down. Thank you, everyone, joining. Everyone's trickling in. We got some people that were waiting right at 8 p.m. Thank you guys, especially for all the listeners in the East Coast. We got some East Coast folks, so it's 11 p.m. for them. If you're off work, going into work, we are here for you. And also, great reminder, guys, join the Super Chat. Chat live with us, comment on all the news that we got going on. That's what makes the show a bit different. You guys are able to interact with us. We have a full panel tonight for the Thursday show, so I'm quite excited for that. Let me swing to my right co-host, Mr. Cabasa.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Americanos Podcast. It is I, Anthony Cabasa. Thank you for joining us here on this Thursday evening. I know it's a late one, but especially if you're working the night shift, we appreciate our first responders and everyone out there working that 7 to 7. I hear you. We see you, and we're here for you. And also everyone else, especially in the Pacific time. If you're a parent putting your kids to sleep, perfect time right now. Tell these kids, yo, time to go to sleep. Got to listen to the Americanos Podcast. It's going to be a great one here for you guys today. We have a very special guest, and let's get on with the show.
We'll go over to our friend of the show now. It's becoming basically a regular, basically host to Haley back in the building for the Thursday.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm not the very special guest, but I am an investigative reporter here in California for the Daily Signal and the Lincoln Media Foundation.
And we do have a special guest in for our Thursday show. Someone that I've known actually for several years now, working on the southern border. Mr. Chris, thank you for coming in.
Hey, thank you all very much. This is really an honor for me. I'm happy to be here. Great meeting Haley and Anthony and of course, Jorge. We've known each other for a few years.
Yep.
You've been doing a great job of bringing the facts of what was happening under the Biden, Harris, Mayorkas, Becerra border
now we're throwing in the Becerra list.
Well, I mean, look.
The Biden-Harris border crisis? No, it's the Becerra
well,
border.
because of the kids, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we had an issue with unaccompanied minors and Health and Human Services in charge of. But anyway, we got plenty of a show. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here tonight and grateful for the coffee. That's going to keep me going. And so y'all just need to cut me off every once in a while and tell you, hey, shut up, Chris. We want to talk.
Hey guys, and this is Chris. I'm gonna read your bio really quick, brother. This is the professional bio of yours. Okay.
All right.
We got Chris T. Clem. He is former chief patrol agent of the U.S. Border Patrol in Yuma, Arizona. Chief Clem retired on December 31st, 2022 after serving 27 and a half years with U.S. Border Patrol. I believe, Chris, that's 2 years into the Biden administration?
That's correct.
Well, perfect. So that we got plenty to talk about. Chief Clem served in multiple locations throughout his career in key leadership positions across the southern border and in Washington, D.C. He was there for the border crisis in El Paso and recently Yuma, Arizona. So we have a lot to talk about. And Chris, we're going to do a big breakdown on the missing migrant children, especially tied with Becerra. We got the new number around 130,000 missing kids still. And those negative headlines for Becerra are starting to hit the news wave. We got a lot to talk about, everyone. We got Fauci hearing in D.C. and a lot of headlines here in Southern California. We do want to start off national in D.C. So we'll head to D.C. We'll start out with some Fauci. We'll head actually back here, guys, to California. We'll cover some of the latest with the Becerra missing kids. That's starting to develop and kind of taking a wave of its own. Many of you guys, I don't know if you guys seen the viral video out of Spain. It looks like these Moroccan migrants literally like crashing the Spain border. Actually remind me, Chris, of Del Rio 2021. Actually, and I think Del Rio was a lot worse. But now Spain getting the taste of the U.S.-Mexico border experience over there. And that video going extremely viral. We got some of Bovino's response and everything. But I did, guys, want to start off with Dr. Fauci. He had a Senate hearing yesterday in Washington, D.C. There was some very explosive clips that came out of that hearing. The Republican lawmakers obviously very angry. They were able to question Dr. Fauci, while the Democrats did the exact opposite. They were defending him the whole time. Many of you guys have seen it. If you guys seen that funny show from Dave Chappelle, where Dave Chappelle does a skit, he does I plead the fifth. If you missed the hearing, and if you don't watch the news and you don't have Twitter, and you basically want a summary of the hearing, just watch the episode of Dave Chappelle's skit. That would break it off. I actually want to start off, Haley, your reaction, any moments you liked from the hearing on Wednesday in Washington.
Yeah, I think it was funny that Democrats did praise Fauci openly. Like, it wasn't a shock, but it was a little bit of a shock to me. Now that time has passed, we see what he has written. By the way, this wasn't a personal diary. He wrote his notes on his federal computer, which anyone that deranged has to be out of their minds to write these things in your federal, in your work computer. In a regular computer alone, I just would never, but that's just me. But yeah, I think it was a little shocking to see Democrats kind of praise this man who we now know lied multiple times to the public, to the American people.
Hey, not John Fetterman, though.
Not John Fetterman. Thank God for John Fetterman.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, John Fetterman was wearing a suit. Anthony.
Because his boss was in town. But that's
Yeah,
another
but-
subject.
I didn't say it this time. I didn't say it.
But he
was in a suit.
He was in a suit. He was in a suit, and I was really proud of him. I think it was funny that Bernie Moreno got so much flack, mainly from the left, though, for saying, "Who the fuck do you think you are?"
And we have that clip. We will play it.
And to me, that's how everyone felt.
I think Bernie also called him a piece of shit as
Yeah.
he was getting in the elevator, right? What do you think about Fauci? I think he's a piece of shit. And
Yeah.
Bernie's
The elevator.
I like Bernie's aura.
It was
Somebody's style I really just like.
It was honest, and it was what the American people felt. I mean, the man couldn't even stand up to look behind him at how many people were standing up that were affected by what he had done. You can't even turn around and glimpse. You have to go talk to your attorney still. That to me is just, it reminds me, I told Anthony this a while ago. I used to be so angry in 2020, and I didn't really understand. I understood why, and it was because we were living in California at the time, so everything kind of just came crashing down for me. And watching this, having this come up again, I was talking to my friends of this makes my blood boil, because I'm reminded as to what we went through specifically out here in California and how detrimental it was to everyone. To see parks closed, to see beaches closed, to see people have to wear masks for almost up to 3 years. And the way that we were governed, the way that we had a dictatorship in this state, it is the antithesis of evil to me, to make people feel like this, feel shamed for their choices. Also, by the way, the fact that the blood clot was then removed, it was censored afterwards, and people are speculating because it's HIPAA violations. What about the HIPAA violations when we were asked at work for if you got vaxxed? What about the HIPAA violations when we went to restaurants asking for our vaccine card? That to me is it just pisses me off again, and I'm gonna start getting really angry. So yeah, I thought, I'm not surprised that he pleaded the fifth over 100 times. A little bit so, for the fact that he has immunity. So anything that he would have said during that time of his scope of immunity would have been fine. But you know what? Florida is about to bring on some lawsuits. Other states, I'm sure, are going to join in, because that's the way to get him.
I mean, I'm just jumping in here because that's what you said, right? Let's just have this conversation. There's a couple questions I haven't been able to get the answers to, and it's if you've been pardoned, then there's some legal experts that say that the Fifth Amendment doesn't apply because you've already been adjudicated, so
He's already received it.
You're kind of compelled to respond. So I thought that was very interesting, right? I also got to say, when the left and those with TDS, when their first response to this whole Fauci hearing is, well, Trump pled the fifth 400 times in his case. Yeah, a civil case with his businesses that was in a trial versus a career public servant using government assets, government cell phones, government computers, giving government advice. That's big difference than a criminal or civil trial where you plead the fifth. When you are a government employee, I mean, you can't compare what Trump or anybody else in a civil case pleading the fifth versus a government hearing. Yeah, that just shows you they can't defend the actions that he did. And by the way, to Haley's point, we always call it the New York Times test. If don't put anything on your government computer, on your government cell phone if you didn't want it on the New York Times, right?
Yeah.
Like, because so for him to put that in his government diary, he wanted it. He knew it was going to be seen. There was something going on there. Sorry,
100%.
just
No. We want you all to join on, bro. This is going to be a panel. We even have the chat jumping in here. I do want to put a quick note. So what did come out is we do know that Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, he said that he's going to be following that hearing yesterday, that the panel of Government Affairs Committee would actually vote next week on whether it could recommend to hold Fauci for contempt in Congress. So we'll see there. And I know, Haley, I think you and I actually sent the same article out of Florida, right? They might even pursue state charges. AG Youthmeyer and DeSantis were talking about it.
Yeah, because that's the way that they could basically get outside of the immunity factor is for the states to be allowed to go after him.
Because it's federal versus state, right?
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah.
well, that's what they did to Trump, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so
Exactly.
it makes sense.
And I definitely think that Florida, Florida was one of the first states to kind of break this down and say, hey, we're not going to follow these rules. These aren't looking good at all, and this isn't by the science. And so I think it's right for them. They were the leading state within COVID in itself. So it makes sense as to why they would be the leading ones to go after Fauci.
Somebody told me a stat, and it's unverifiable. So the live chat, and you all may know this better than I do, but like the United States was number one, like in COVID deaths, but
I believe that we have the most fat people, bro.
Well, you did have pre-existing conditions and all that stuff, but sub-Saharan Africa had the least. You know what they have? They're healthy and they have sun and they're outdoors and they're doing. They didn't do any of the restrictions. They weren't masking up. So to me, it just shows you, kind of to Haley's point, how we lived basically under a dictatorship for those years during COVID. And again, we know people died. We're not saying that was a hoax. We're just saying that the whole way they did things, I mean, that's a whole other topic. But just to me, when you look at the way they shut things down, the way they treated people, like you mentioned, we had the HIPAA violations that we became accustomed to, showing were you vaxxed, were you not vaxxed? Hotlines to report your neighbors like they were doing in Minnesota. I mean, come on, but who's the tyrant? Right?
It's crazy.
Yeah,
No, it's crazy.
Yeah.
We got really quick, guys. I want to run through some of the chats. We got an active chat tonight on this Thursday. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It is 8:13 here, local time on the West Coast in California. We got IMG $5 super chat to start the night. Thank you. 2020 was the year I traveled the most ever. Wow, cowards in California stayed home like good guys. Good times. We got a lot of people in here. We got H. Sure Hernandez checking in. Thank you, bro. TBW Studios, we love you. We got Sarah Clem. Is that?
Oh my gosh!
That's the wife.
Yeah, that's my wife. She's live.
Florida hopefully will take Fauci down. Let's go. She's feeling based.
You know what's a really interesting point? I just thought about it in my big brain about Florida becoming kind of like the state that comes after Fauci first. Is there's someone in Florida that might or might not maybe making a presidential run in 2028. And I think that this person might do well to come after the number one hated guy in America and kind of make it like a forefront push, being like, hey, I'm the guy that made this happen, or I came after him.
He's gonna run.
You don't think DeSantis is going to run?
Let's see. We got
I was thinking about a former senator, now Secretary of State. That's what I'm thinking.
That's another good point. Yeah,
I mean, it's still a nexus to Florida. So I mean,
really quick, guys. Let me read some of these because we got these. It's a pretty active chat. TBW Studios, thank you. It says also how Senator Paul asking if he has a folder in front of him, which Fauci said he plead the fifth. It was a lot of those clips went extremely viral. Pennywitz, thank you for joining and being here again. Pau, we got Red Bear 85 with a boom. Richard Sweet 7842. Fauci lied. People died. Got to get that tattooed on your forehead, Anthony.
Yeah.
not happening. I already have one in
TVW
my back.
Studio says W.
Sorry,
Oh,
on your
W. Jorge for having manners and letting ladies first talk. You guys are big fans of Haley, bro. They want to hear more of Haley, less
love
of
Haley.
the
They
men.
love Haley in the
Isaac
show.
Hernandez says more gay than Jorge. No shot. Thank you guys. We have a lot here. TVW Studio says if Anthony erupts, he's more gay than Jorge. If Anthony erupts Haley, he owes everyone else tacos. Right by 85. Thank you guys. It's a pretty active chat. We'll try to get to all of them. Let's go. We got Sarah Clem, bro.
Hey,
She's in
I'm
the
pleading.
chat.
I'm pleading the fifth.
Yeah.
I'm not talking because we want to give it to Haley, so I'm just going to
No,
plead the fifth.
please don't.
Yeah, so if you want to ask me my opinion on the story, I'm ready. I'm ready for my take.
Thank you. Oh, actually, let's do that. Actually, Anthony, before we get your take, before we get Anthony's take,
Bro, I got it wound up right here.
if we can, producer Jerry, if we could go to Jorge Media Clips, if we could actually play Moreno and Fauci, and then if we could play Hawley and Fauci back to back, and then we'll have Anthony react here.
Of that stadium and arrested. Those policies were put in place because you had moronic politicians that listened to the words of a megalomaniac who was more interested in having met a Kardashian than the suffering of the American people. And that is you. Your
You can hear, right, Chris?
Yeah.
advice to communities like that, to idiotic politicians who enforce those rules, arrested that mom for watching a football game with her own family outside. When that story broke, I said to myself, I cannot stand idly on the side and watch this happen. It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the fuck do you think you were for doing that?
Ooh.
It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people.
Think that's it?
Bernie Moreno, the Bogota badass, is what.
Dude, yeah,
that-
Moreno was on. Yeah, really quick, producer Jerry, let's play the one with Josh, Hawley, and Fauci, then we'll have Anthony react.
You did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic, you got rich, didn't you? You got rich while people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich. And not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally. Cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
You remember Greg Folkers? Who was that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Your chief of staff is the answer. Do you remember Patricia Conrad? Who was that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What a D-bag.
She was your personal assistant. And what were these individuals doing in the depth of the pandemic in November of 2020 when millions of Americans were suffering from COVID? What were they doing? I tell you what they're doing. Folkers was on your behalf soliciting and gathering information for a cash award. Let's look at it. We've got his email right here, right over my shoulder. Folkers says, I'm working on this nomination for the Dan David Award for Fauci. We need to beef up the COVID part. Do you have language in the can that you could share that delineates how we responded in new ways to COVID? He sends this to multiple federal employees. What was the Dan David Award? Do you remember, Doc?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to.
Yeah, we could cut right there, Jerry. Yeah. So,
This guy, bro.
it's so many clips were going viral. But Anthony, just what's your takeaways from Fauci's appearance yesterday?
I mean, dude, we were talking about this Tuesday. It's something that I continue to come back on, and to the point that Chris, you and I were talking about earlier. There's a lot of people angry at the Republican Party. We're talking about like the optics of like ICE and Border Patrol and deportations and stuff. And I said this on Tuesday's show. It's like, have we forgotten where we were under the previous administration? There's videos going viral today. I don't know if you've seen them, Chris, but it's Spain's under invasion right now from Morocco. So the Bill Malusian, Fox News guy, national correspondent, porous border. Spain's basically being invaded right now. They've got people being looted. Spain's military is not activating. Spain's government, socialists, just refuses to take care of its borders, refuses to tackle the issues head on. And I just think to myself, I'm like, dude, where we were under the Biden administration, not just with Anthony Fauci, not just with these issues of the pandemic, but the porous borders, so many things that have just been completely 180'd. And I understand, we're not, Trump administration is not perfect. There's a lot of things that maybe some people have some, but to listening to Anthony Fauci all this week, man, we were kind of reminiscing on some of the stories on Tuesday about the things that we underwent ourselves. I was telling a story to them on Tuesday about how we went like hiking as a family. And of course we weren't wearing stupid ass masks. You know what I mean? Like we're out in the freaking mountains, bro, And we pass this family and they're all masked up and they're looking at us like we've got, like the disease, like, oh man, don't get near them. And you got the paddle surfer that got arrested out there, like Huntington Beach. There's just so many stories that we could go on. And to know that this is the guy behind it, and it's such a tragedy that this guy's got a presidential pardon. But I like that it's looking like the Republicans are looking for legal loopholes to come after him. Because what's proven in his diaries is that when people were suffering, and I covered first responders that refused to get the vaccine, LAPD, Los Angeles Fire Department, nurses, doctors. There was like that viral video of a UCLA doctor who was getting ready for surgery, and security had to escort him out because like, you're not vaccinated. And he's like, I've got patients that are relying on me. They're like, we don't care. You're not vaccinated. You're out of here. And I reflect back. I'll never forget the faces. I'll never forget the people. First, it started with the nurses. Then it moved over to first responders and law enforcement. I'll never forget meeting nurses that were fired, and they were like, well, I'm just thankful that my cop husband is still in the force. Then the cop husband got let go. I'm just thankful that my firefighting husband still has his job and he's close to retiring. Boom. Yeah. Hey, you're not able to finish out your 20 years or your 30 years. We understand you're a year away from retirement. You don't get vaccinated, you don't get retirement. And they're just like, well, I guess I don't get to retire. And you had children of these families, these first responder families, holding up signs, please don't fire my daddy. Please don't fire my mommy. And the kids are crying, just waving these signs because the moms are crying, the dads are frustrated out there, and they're just pleading with the city, please just give us our medical exemptions, give us our religious exemptions. I will never, ever, ever forget my own mother. She worked at Kaiser Permanente in Los Angeles. She had been there for over 40 years. She came out, that was her first real great job that she had as a fresh immigrant from Mexico back in the 80s. She loved that job. She loved her coworkers. She would bring us to her work and introduce us to, it was kind of like a family there, with the workers there. And she got a religious exemption because she refused to get vaccinated. And all of a sudden, Kaiser hires like a third-party firm to overview these religious exemptions and starts revoking them one by one, saying, nope, no religious exemption for you. They wouldn't tell her why. She was excited. She was like, hey, good news, my religious exemption went through. And I'll never forget that phone call. She called me crying in a panic attack, saying, my supervisor just said, if I don't get the vaccine by tomorrow, they're going to fire me. And my pension is gone. So luckily I was able to talk with the person, and this person's like some Filipino guy, barely spoke English. And I'm like, what's going on here? And he's like, your mom had to get the vaccine. If not, she's fired tomorrow. I'm like, you can't do that. And the guy's like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. He's going like, la, 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 like over the phone. And I'm like, dude, this is, I was seeing red. I'm like, dude, this is my mother. Don't you dare sit there and tell me, oh, who cares about your mom? Who cares about this is my mom, dude. This is my everything. Single parent household, by the way. My dad was never around. My mom is my world, you know? She's calling me panic. She can't even drive. She's like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
Like, it's over for me. You know, she's like, this is all I have. I'm going to miss out my pension. Luckily, we were able to hire an attorney, and they were able to do like a 2-month process for her to retire with her pension. But imagine all the people that were not able to. And so when I hear Anthony Fauci, I think back to that. I think back to being in City Hall, listening to firefighters who are about to get fired. And I'm checking in, and some lady who had taken like 3 buses from San Fernando, old lady, she's wearing a mask and everything. She's trying to get checked in for some kind of appointment at City Hall. And they're like, where's your vaccine card? She's checking everywhere. She's like, I'm so sorry. I forgot it at home. You got to go back. And she's like, I just took 3 buses. Please, if I don't do this today, they're going to cut my benefits, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, we can't help you. You need to have your vaccine card. She's like, I will call my family. I will have them FaceTime you my card. And the guy's like, there's nothing we can do. You got to go back. The woman just breaks down crying. And she's like, you guys don't understand how you're fucking me right now, you know? And I feel bad. And I was just like, dude, what are we doing here?
Sounds like we were doing fascism, socialism, communism, all that stuff, right? Because that's
terrible,
look,
man.
you know, it's the stories are endless, and you listen to what happened this week with Fauci. Look, I'm of the mindset of what consenting adults do is what consenting adults do, and I think, you know, but forcing it on people, demanding and then holding your retirement, your job, your life, you know, is you either comply or we're going to fire you. That's what I have a problem with. I don't care if you got the vaccine or not, but it should have been your choice, your decision, not forced down the government, especially even worse now when we see all the revelations that the people that were saying, hey, this isn't normal, this isn't right, end up being proven right. You know, and so again, my heart goes out to people that that were put in those situations. But again, just like anything else in life, we kind of talked about it before the show. What consenting adults do behind closed doors, or when they're making those individual decisions, I don't have a problem with it. But when you start forcing it on people, or you're harming people, or you're hurting people, you know, that's a problem. Because that takes away our individual liberties. And part of being in the United States is the life, you know, liberty and the pursuit of happiness. And what was happening during COVID, because of the mandates, we were restricting your life, your liberty, and your pursuit of happiness. And if you want to take the vaccine, you want to take 10 of them, that's fine. Just don't force it on people. Let people make those decisions. And that I got no problem with. But how this went out, man, that was a problem for me.
I have a quick question for you, because at that time you were still working with Border Patrol, right? I remember that one of the things that I was just pissed about was the fact that as American citizens, we were asked for a vaccine card. I got personally thrown out of restaurants because I failed to show my vaccine card. But then I'd go and cover the border, and I would see thousands and thousands of immigrants. We had no idea if they were vaccinated. They weren't showing up with masks, and they were just allowed into these facilities. I mean, can you like shed some light on what it was like to be a Border Patrol agent at that time? I mean, how did your department heads justify, oh yeah, this is fine, even though we have like a virus that's shut down the world, basically?
Yes, all this kicked off in 2020, right? And you got to think about the Democrats had won the House and Senate, so there was already that big influence from the left pushing things down, right? And we started seeing the influx. I was the deputy chief in El Paso when all that started, and an acting chief for a while there, and even out in Big Bend. First of all, I was glad we had a name, because for decades we were getting sick because of uncontrolled border. To your point, people just coming across that we had no idea what they were bringing. Every year we got a bout of some kind of flu because some group of people or a population came in, was in one of our holding facilities, and the next thing you know, a week later, Border Patrol agents are sick and we're taking time off. So, it was tough because initially in El Paso, we started seeing that big influx. That was the first ground zero. That's what the first group of people under the bridge, because we were catching thousands a day in El Paso, groups of 300 out in Lordsburg and the Boot Heel. And again, we were restricting.
If I could ask
please
really
do.
quick, Chris, on those first groups, what nationality were you running into at first?
Initially, there were a lot of them were Central Americans.
Okay.
In 2020, those groups of 300, a lot of them were Central Americans. You have a few Venezuelans and South American nationalities coming in, but most of them were Central America. Very few from Mexico. That's always a big misnomer in border security. Is the government of Mexico is the problem because they're allowing stuff to happen. It's not necessarily the Mexican nationals. I mentioned earlier, at least when I was chief in Yuma, Mexico rarely made my daily or weekly top 10. It was from all over the world. But these people were passing through. They weren't wearing masks. We had no idea who they were. They put restrictions on us initially. We had to mask up. And you know, I got to be honest with you, in the holding facilities, I didn't have a problem with that for our agents because we were being exposed to things all the time. Flu, TB, scabies, all that stuff. I mean, you know, when you introduce any kind of virus into a holding facility with hundreds of people, it wipes out the entire population. You have to get it sanitized. Same thing with like a scabies outbreak. Next thing you know, and you start itching when you talk about it. You know, so it wasn't. I think the biggest issue we had, and I'm going to go from El Paso into the Biden era in Yuma, was the restrictions on us as federal agents. You know, wearing masks in the office, wearing masks in the vehicle, wearing masks in the field. That became a problem because it became a safety issue. But yet nothing was done for the groups that were coming across, for those that were entering illegal. You know, we'd put them in a bus, transfer them out. We'd give them masks, things like that, because it just became more of a hassle. And I think the part that was really the troubling part is, to your point, here in the United States, we were mandating people get vaccinated. We were rapidly processing and getting people out into the country. Catch and release was the thing under the Biden administration. You literally could have had patient zero on a transport bus going to Phoenix Sky Harbor, sitting there exposing everybody, and then getting on a aluminum tube for a 3-hour flight to Chicago, exposing everybody because they wouldn't shut the damn border down, you know, and then they started making exceptions when we implemented Title 42. So again, it was. At the time, you're kind of thinking right now, and you're not really thinking the big picture. You're like, we got to stop this. We got things going on. But now, when you look back on it, man, it was all effed up the way they were doing things. If they were really, they were going to they shut Americans down, but they didn't care about shutting the border down. That was the part that was.
I wanted to share this, Chris, because this is interesting because you had the Border Patrol perspective. So back in 2021, I was covering the border for the Daily Caller, but to the public, it hasn't been released yet that migrants were being released and being flown without being tested or having to take the COVID-19 shot. So that information was not public yet. So we found that out actually on accident. We were reporting in Del Rio, Texas, and one of the reporters we were with, you might know his work. His name is Julio Rosas. He does some amazing stuff. I know him. Julio had an early flight out of Del Rio, Texas, the little small airport there. I believe he had like a 6 a.m. flight. So, Julio asked us, "Hey, can you drive me to the airport in the morning?" We say, "Yeah, no problem." We go take Julio to the airport, and outside of it's like a super small airport in Del Rio, Texas, but outside of the airport were bodies layered all over the ground. And we're like, what's going on? So me and Julio get out of the car, and it was all Haitian migrants sleeping. So we wake up the Haitians, and the good thing is that the Haitians were living in Chile, so they spoke Spanish.
Yeah.
So we're like, hey, ¿qué está pasando or whatever? We were just like, what are you guys doing at the airport? And then they said, oh, the federal government is flying us across the country. So many of the Haitians were going to New York, some were going to Arizona, some were actually going to Los Angeles. And then right there I had a light bulb, and I go, I already know what I'm going to do. And I lined like 10 of them up, and I go, have you been tested for COVID-19 before being released into the United States? No. Have you been tested for COVID? No. And we basically put a montage together, and it went viral to the point where Mayorkas had to respond to that and admit to the American public that we are flying migrants across the country without being tested. So the first leak was that situation.
So-
But it's just interesting because you got to see it from the other side.
And we, back in Yuma, we ended up having to start doing the testing. We were one of the pilot sectors, and the NGO. Now I am not a fan of what a lot of NGOs did, but the one in Yuma, the Regional Center for Border Health, actually did step up, because you got to remember, Yuma is a snowbird capital of the Southwest during the winter months, and so you have an influx of almost 100,000 more people that would help and volunteer. But when COVID, nobody was traveling; they were staying up north; they weren't coming down. So we were in a jam. We needed to be able to offload these processed people. So that NGO really did us a solid. But they were the ones that were getting given the vaccines to the migrants. Obviously, it was voluntary for them, mandated for the federal employees. You mentioned Julio. We just testified together on June 30th in a subcommittee on. It was a roundtable on solutions to address unaccompanied children. And not a single Democrat showed up. Every committee member on the Republican side showed up, even left hearings and came in and asked questions. But no Democrat showed up. But just want to make sure everybody knows that when it comes down to kids,
We have a lot to talk about.
there's one area that they don't want to talk about it, because that they spent 4 years telling us there wasn't a border crisis, there wasn't a problem, but yet there was. Just kind of closing up the perspective from the agent side of it. We did lose a handful of agents. I don't know the total number. I know I had two, I think two definitely that were passed away as a result of COVID, at least according to the doctors. They did have some pre-existing conditions. I have no doubt about that. That was the trouble part of it, is we're dealing with people that were coming across, that were encouraged to come across by an administration, yet our own frontline agents were suffering, their families were suffering. And then the other part, whether the virus was real, whatever people's ideas is these agents were still going to work.
Yep.
And still having to come home to their families. And the hysteria that the media created and everything else, it made it very uncomfortable. And it was a very, I got to tell you, when I got the call that I was going to Yuma as the chief, and they're catching 20 people a day, I'm like, this is going to be great, because it was under Trump, and I started under Trump there. But when Biden came over, it went from 25 a day to 50 a day to 500 a day to 1,000 a day to I did 2 years, and I'm retiring because there's a story behind that. But
we have. We got time. We'll cover a lot, Chris, especially on the migrant.
Yep. If you don't mind, just a quick follow up, because you brought up a really good point. The fact that these people shut down the entire world because of this, but agents were still forced to go out there. I mean, I just feel like my wife would be like, who do I need to contact to have you stop going to work, because you might come home and kill us?
Yeah.
I mean, if it was that deadly, according to the experts, I mean, was there anyone in your department, was there any supervisor that was like, wait a minute, like, if this is so deadly that churches can't gather in some states, and I mean, again, we can go back to all the videos. There were people that would sit in a funeral home, and the wife just lost the husband of 50 years, and the son would be like, I can't take this. I need to sit next to my mom. And so he goes and sits next to the mom. Then the other brother sits next to the mom. And the guy comes in and is like, no. You can't do that. Don't console your mom. You need to go 6 feet away. But then again, Border Patrol agents are sent every single day to people that are not vaccinated, that none of this. Is there anyone that said, wait a minute, like...
As far as what the fuck is wrong with this? There was nobody. I mean, we all said it, right? But I will say this. They shut the world down except for the route to the U.S. border.
Yep.
Right?
So
that's the problem. Like, we had restrictions to travel. They were spacing seats on the plane. You couldn't go to Vegas and sit next to somebody on a slot machine or a table. Everything was, mask mandated. But free for all coming to the border. Now, I will say this. We did come up, because agents, in the time of need, are become very creative and innovation in how we would remotely process. So we wouldn't have to bring people into aggregate settings, bring them into the station and things like that. So people recognize that, hey, we needed a lot more laptops and some hotspots so we could fingerprint. This was under Title 42, so we could fingerprint to make sure we didn't have a terrorist or a wanted suspect and never have to bring them into a facility. And we could quickly expel them. But it became a revolving door because they spent all their time, money, and effort to get to the border. They get kicked back. They'd stayed in Mexico for 24 hours and tried again.
Chris, if I'm not mistaken, if they got expelled under Title 42, that wouldn't be like on their record, huh?
No.
They could come again.
They claimed it as a deportation to try to pump up the numbers.
But it wasn't on that individual's record, right?
No.
I remember
It's
reporting
like getting a verbal or written warning by the PD. You're getting something that says you were stopped for speeding, but it's not on your record. It's not going to count against you.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, so that was a huge issue when we were at News Nation, is that some of these individuals were getting expelled under Title 42, but then they could cross again because there's nothing on the record. So I do want to at least read some super chats, guys. It's 8:40 local time. Thank you to everyone listening. We have a pretty jumpy, active live chat, so I want to read some of these, and then we'll continue the conversation. My boy Run with Kurt says, I literally told my job you could fire me if you want me to get vaccinated. I think that was the case for a lot of people. I know me and Anthony were running around interviewing a lot of first responders.
You know what's crazy is we can say vaccinated on YouTube now.
Oh,
remember
that was a big
back
thing,
then?
Yeah.
Just saying vaccinated on YouTube flagged you.
We probably couldn't even say Fauci anymore, but now we can.
Yeah, that's crazy.
No, it was insane. Thank you guys, everyone, for joining. My boy Run with Kurt, everyone, Red Bear, Penny Witt still here. Michelle Alonso says, in order to keep my teaching job, I had to test weekly because I refused to get vaccinated. It's Norman C. says, I had to test weekly as well.
For LA, Skid Row is still open. Do you guys know that? No, I'm not joking.
That fentanyl.
No, of course,
You
yeah.
gotta smoke that fenny.
No, like their shops were still open. They didn't have
Oh, I didn't know
vaccination.
that.
Yeah. I went down in 2020, December, right before Christmas, because that was when we had the re-shut down again. So we shut everything down again, all the small businesses. Near Skid Row, there's like a handful of small businesses, coffee shops that I used to go to. And down there, it was completely shut. And so I had a source that was living down on Skid Row, and he was like, oh yeah, everything's open down here. And I was like, everything? And he was like, yeah, no one's wearing masks. No one asked for your vax card. Like all the shops on Skid Row itself, they're all open. He was like, the food trucks are open. The food stores
That's
are open.
sick.
So I went
should've
down
went
there and I saw it and I was like, dude, what the fuck is going on?
Damn, I
Like,
should have
what-
went there, bro.
Yeah.
Got my black coffee, rip a little cig.
Also,
little crack.
For the viewers tuning in, if you guys are still tuning in, remember, you guys can ask a question of any of us, including our guest here, Chris, who served Border Patrol 27 years, correct?
Yeah, and one other piece I think for a little bit later in the show is after I retired, I spent a lot of time on as a non-paid contributor to all the major networks on the border, and then I was appointed by the White House to come back as a senior advisor at HHS, working directly for the White House to address the unaccompanied alien children.
We're actually going to talk about that
Yeah.
right.
Was that for the Trump or is that for Biden?
No, that was Trump 47.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
no.
I was going to say, so you got to work with Becerra.
No,
Well,
I didn't.
technically-
I got to reveal
Yeah.
everything you're learning
Okay,
about
gotcha.
Becerra was because of the team we put together. But
Boom.
I don't want to jump too far ahead. But
No, you're good.
the point, there's just so much in that 100 days I learned that wasn't public, right? And then, everything that's coming out with Fauci, because remember, where did Fauci work? At NIH under HHS. Another, who was
Yeah.
the boss there? Right? So
there we-
there's a thread here, a common thread about what goes on in that Health and Human Services Department, because that's where Title 42
Yep.
rests. That's where all this stuff comes in. That's why when we talked about Biden, Harris, Mayorkas, Becerra crisis, they're all connected.
They're all connected.
They're all connected.
Really quick, guys, we're going to go through some of the super chats, and then we're going to get into the topic of the lost migrant children, especially because we have Chris here, expert on it, but also we get to kind of learn from the border patrol perspective. So it's just a different lens on that issue. Thank you guys, everyone. Red Bear 85 says, I am lucky that I landed a job where I don't have to get vaccinated. It's my choice. Isaac Hernandez says, rare Skid Row W. I agree. I am gay says, I agree with Penny.
That's Haley with the win bringing that, by
Yeah.
the way. So shout out to
Yeah.
Haley for bringing out the facts.
My boy Realm of Kurt says, my mom had blood clotting and other complications because of the vaccine. Luckily, my mother had access to good health care. My grandma passed away alone in the hospital due to complications. Man, I know, bro. It was rough. Man, we got a lot here. Thank you guys, everyone, for joining in. We're gonna talk, guys, about Javier Becerra, the connection with the lost migrant children. It's really hitting the news headlines, and online it has exploded. Me and Anthony got the opportunity. Actually, Chris was there too, but Anthony and I covered Steve Hilton's presser. I got invited to speak, and I uploaded just maybe like a 2.5 minute speech. It's really making the rounds on social media. So it's kind of cool just to see how much people care about this issue. You know, Chris, Americans from all across the country want to see something done, especially with Javier Becerra. Just at least held him accountable to some sort. So thank you guys, everyone joining in. It is 8:45 local time. We got a good live chat audience watching right now and concurrent viewers. Once again, guys, you could ask a question to Chris, anyone here on the panel. If you have any comment, chime in. We will read them live. And just want to say once again, thank you. It is our Thursday show, and that's where we kind of want to hit off here. Chris, some of the news headlines, if we can. Producer Jerry, if we could just click my Jorge first story. So we could just get that headline to the audience. It's Javier Becerra's campaign rocked by horrifying claims about missing migrant kids under his watch. I think right now, Chris, is a lot of normies. You know, maybe they don't follow the news like us. We're all news junkies and stuff like that. And probably our audience, a lot of people that follow us are news junkies. But for a lot of normies, they don't know who Javier Becerra is. You know, they don't know HHS. They maybe are reading some of these headlines like, what? Missing kids? Maybe not fully kind of grasp it. How do you think we could kind of explain this issue to a normie?
Yeah. So Congress, the Health and Human Services Office of Refugee Resettlement was established like in 1981 under the last thing that Jimmy Carter did before he left office. And when INS was abolished and absorbed by Department of Homeland Security, the Office of Refugee Resettlement took on not just refugees, but all unaccompanied alien children.
That's the key right there.
Which means anybody that is 17 years or younger that is not with their parent or legal guardian. So even if a 16-year-old brother with a 17-year-old sister came across and she's not the guardian, they're separated. They go directly to the Office of Refugee Resettlement for sponsorship and placement. That falls under the Health and Human Services Department. And there has been multiple laws. The Trafficking Victims Repatriation Reauthorization Act, is what governs a lot of the stuff from the Border Patrol's responsibility, which really is important here, is that all unaccompanied alien children must be processed and placed within the Office of Refugee Resettlement within 72 hours. Okay? And so that's where, that's a problem when you have 500,000 kids come across during the Becerra, Biden, Mayorkas, Harris administration. So that is something that people don't understand, is there were so many children. Yeah, there was a lot of 15, 16, and 17-year-olds that were making independent decisions, but there was a shitload, excuse my language, of kids under 12 years old coming across by themselves, maybe with neighborhood kids that were trafficked across the border and exposed to horrible situations during their journey. And Border Patrol would encounter them in the desert. Sometimes people have seen the videos of them being small kids dropped off the wall and just left there waiting for Border Patrol. But it is the responsibility of Health and Human Services Office of Refugee Resettlement to take care and of the children that are in custody and place them. And I'll just go ahead and explain this. There's 4 categories of sponsorship. Category 1 is the parent or legal guardian, which is obviously where we want the kid to be. Number 2 is a related adult. So an aunt, uncle, grandparent, or adult cousin. 3rd is an unrelated adult. And then 4th would be like a foster care system. Well, typically, historically, there'd be a vetting situation of determining that this is the parent, the legal guardian. You look at a documentation, federal IDs or identification documents, passports, driver's license, proof of income, proof of address verification, home visits, really like you would a foster care situation. You would almost interview to make sure that this kid is being placed into the safest environment. Well, all that was waived under Becerra, and kids were placed into situations that we didn't even verify. When I say we, that administration, because I wasn't working there at the time, I was in the border, that they weren't even verifying the addresses. They weren't verifying the documents. Look, 70% of the sponsor applications were fraudulent.
Oh my gosh.
Meaning fake IDs, fake addresses. There's articles out there that we released back in 2025 that shows like photoshopped pictures of. There's this one picture with this super sponsor. I mean, somebody had sponsored 2 or more kids separately out of New Jersey that had a Photoshop picture, him and this other woman that he claimed was the mother. Her feet were cut off and there was little stars all around her like it was a glamour shot from the mall back in the 80s. And that was an accepted document to show family relationship. So what idiot approved that and placed that kid with that super sponsor? And of course, that person has since been arrested, indicted, and convicted. I mean, but this is the kind of nonsense that was going on. 479,000 UACs came in under Biden. The OIG report exposed like 319,000 that were missing and unaccounted for.
Under Becerra watch, too.
Under Becerra. And I can tell you under Trump, and I can tell you a little bit what I did under the first 100 days of Trump 47. But as of last month, I think 147,000 of their nearly 280,000, because again, numbers are kind of skewed because under Becerra, there was no accountability. So a lot of it was missing paperwork and things. But 147,000 kids have been identified and accounted for, meaning that many are safe, many have been removed, many are reunified with family. They're back in the appropriate system with appropriate sponsors. Unfortunately, about 20 of them were discovered to be deceased. Some were in jail. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that happened. All that is out there in the public. We've heard it from current officials. There's still another 100,000 plus that we still got to go find. And again, will we ever find them? It's going to be a challenge because the accountability process, the dismissive mindset, and the waiving of sponsor verification under Becerra, and even some things that Mayorkas put in place, has led to this disaster. And so, just closing this out, and we talked about it earlier. You have to have some of this interior enforcement and these operations going on by our federal agents, because while people are getting spun up on protests at a detention center, those federal agents are out there knocking on doors and following up on sponsor addresses to find these kids and bring the criminals to justice and bring the kids to safety. So that's what's ongoing, but we still got a lot of work to do. And that's why we need the community. That's why we need to have leaders in place that put child welfare above political expediency in their own personal freaking careers and say, hey, you know what? If Becerra didn't like what was going on, he should have told the president, this is a problem and I'm stepping down. But he didn't. He just masked it and just
away.
Grifter.
Yeah.
We've seen the stories.
I had
really quick, bro. Let me do this because we do have a $10 super chat. So it's why are you hold $10? Thank you. It says everyone talking Haley, but does anyone see Anthony? He's looking handsome. Cookie, you look like a hot tubs, bro. Great guess, by the way. You're looking great, Anthony.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, I did have a quick question. Sorry. I did a report back in 2021 in which I noticed that at the border there was, speaking of like the unaccompanied minors, I noticed that usually families and adult single males were usually put on one bus, but if you were an unaccompanied minor, you were always put in a different bus.
Yep.
What was like the deal there? Like, could you?
Well, yeah, you don't want minors with unrelated adults.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take this back a layer. 2014, under President Obama, Secretary Jay Johnson, and Deputy Secretary Ali Mayorkas, we built cages in South Texas. You know why? Because we needed to separate the minors from the unrelated adults, because that was the first big push, was down in South Texas, down in the Rio Grande Valley. So President Obama built the cages, and I can tell you right now, yours truly gave the authorizations to our facilities and maintenance group to say, hey, you've got 30 days to figure out this problem. And I remember reporting up saying, hey, we've got this border crisis. We've got to protect these kids. So we built these cages only to separate violent criminals and unrelated adults from teenagers, from little girls. That's why you saw single adults, families with children, and then families without children, so husband and wives, and then kids, all in separate vehicles, because we wanted to protect the kids. So we were beginning that. Agents were doing the right thing upon encounter, but yet our politically confirmed secretaries were dismissing that and putting them in releasing them to unvetted sponsors.
But
so
did
it was
they
about
go-
safety.
But so when it goes in, so like let's say they get into the bus, is that like an expedited process? Like, do they go to a different facility? Like, I'm trying to figure out.
No. So you've been down the border enough that the Border Patrol stations are holding facilities. They're not detention centers. They're there to process, hold, and turn over to another agency. Because the Border Patrol is really, if you put the immigration continuum, the enforcement and process continuum in like a 24-hour clock, Border Patrol is responsible for like an hour or two. It's ICE, it's ERO, it's the immigration courts. They're the ones responsible for the lion's share. But Border Patrol had the biggest responsibility and accountability because we had the encounter. We had to hold them. We couldn't say no. Everybody else could say, oh, I don't have space, or I don't have a bus to come get them, or you're going to have to hold them a little bit longer till we find a shelter. Meanwhile, we're left holding the bag. So they all came to a Border Patrol station to be processed. And we immediately separated unaccompanied children. They went into one area so they could be protected and were put in a least restricted environment. And then we had families with children, kept them away from unrelated single adults. And then we had single adult females and single adult males. Sometimes there was an initial mix of everybody in the, in the Sally Port, which is, where we bring them into the holding area. But it was our goal was to, treat everybody with dignity and humanely as possible. But most importantly, our number one priority was protecting the kids. That was our most vulnerable population because of the journey and the exposure and exploitation they had coming up here. So if you can imagine, just think about a 10-year-old girl from Venezuela having to make that journey as unaccompanied because she's been trafficked. Or even if she came with family, but they were separated before they crossed the border. What trauma has she been through? And she's being told, don't you say a word or your mom is going to get it, The exploitation that happened and then just a sheer volume of people, it put a lot of burden on the Border Patrol to do the right thing. The problem is how do you interview a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old or somebody that didn't speak Spanish, and most of us, we all spoke Spanish. If they spoke Portuguese, which is difficult if you don't, even the native speakers had a hard time getting like Brazilian languages, things like that. It just was such an unfair situation for the agents, but most importantly for the kids. But I will tell you this, and I would raise my right hand every time I testify. The safest place that those kids were ever in during their journey was when they were with the Border Patrol, because the horrors that they were exposed to make it to the border, and then what we learned afterwards when they were released from the Border Patrol and gone to OR and went to these shelters, and that some of them were assaulted and then placed into sponsors that were criminals. The saddest thing to say, but the best and safest place they were was in a Border Patrol holding facility. And as Jorge has exposed and others have told that story and that tale and what whistleblowers have reported, the horror didn't end when they were in OR custody. Sometimes it just began even worse when they got placed back to an unvetted criminal trafficker sponsor, and the young girls and the young boys were sexually trafficked, and the older ones were put to work. And some were just discarded.
Last question. I promise I'll shut up for the rest of the podcast, Jorge.
No.
But the one I want to ask is, what percentage would you say of the kids were being used as mules? I remember when I was there, there were times where I could overhear the agents asking the kid, is this your dad? Is this your dad? Or asking the dad, like, hey, is this your son? What's your name? This and that. And not very, very often, but sometimes I would see that they would end up like, hey, this guy's saying one thing, the kid's saying like another, So like, is there like a high percentage, low percentage of kids that are actually used by cartel and saying like, hey, you have to say that this is your dad?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So I was when you say mules, I immediately think of the narcotic smugglers.
That's what I was thinking.
There's a couple buckets of how these kids were used, right? One, the very simplest one was they just, the older ones, the 15, 16, 17-year-olds, a lot of them, especially when I was in El Paso, the Mexican consulate used to laugh and call us as like, hey, you guys are doing so good. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, we would have the same kids, 15, 16-year-olds, cross the border on Friday because generally on Saturdays we couldn't remove them. We had to wait till like Sunday to send the juveniles back. They wanted to be taken into custody because our juvenile holding area had PlayStations and soccer field. They would come over and they were going to get showers. They were going to get hot meals, and they got to play Xbox and stuff like that. So they were literally playing games. The Mexican ones would go back and forth from Juarez, right? So we took very good care of them. So you had those older independent decision makers, these guys, border jumpers, right? But when you get the ones that weren't from Mexico or they're from way down south in the interior, you had those that were paired up with single adults to make families because we were not under Biden. We were not detaining family units, and again, they would take young kids, sometimes infants, sometimes 8, 9-year-olds, some preteens, and put them with unrelated adults. And an 8-year-old's not going to say anything. We're not interrogating an 8-year-old.
Right.
So they're just being quiet. It would be our agents that would pick up on things like something's not right. So they'd flag the file because anybody that's had kids or been around kids know that they're usually comfortable with adults that they're comfortable with, especially their family. Mm-hmm. But they're very shy when they're with somebody that they don't know. So if we picked up on that, we'd set them aside and try to do some investigations. But as far as a percentage, it's hard to break that down. But I will tell you, it was a good chunk of kids that were used to make fake families. That's why we started under Trump using DNA testing.
I remember that. Then they blamed them for separating families.
Yes,
we're not separating them. We're doing DNA
If you can, producer
tests.
Jerry, just Google Biden DNA testing border and just put up a headline.
So I can tell you this. As the deputy chief in El Paso from 2018 to the end of 2020, we were the pilot sector for family fraud and DNA testing. HSI and Border Patrol El Paso, we were using DNA testing, rapid testing. Our agents would separate any potential fraudulent families, and we would do the DNA testing, and we would bust these people real quick. It got so good that when we were out of test kits or HSI wasn't available, our agents would take Q-tips and walk in, and people would just break. Well, yeah, you know what? That's my friend's kid, because the word travels real quick. As soon as so the Democrats took over the House and Senate in that second part, so immediately they started attacking us, saying, well, you're separating families. Well, these weren't real families. Most of the family separation at that time happened by the cartel south of the border. Right. They would take moms and dads with their kids and another mom and dad with their kids and swap and send some to one sector or one area of the sector and then send to the other. For example, now I'm going back to Yuma. You'd have a family of 4 and a family of 4. They'd come in there, they'd switch mom and dad, take the kids, swap them, leave a couple kids as unaccompanied, send some to El Centro, send the other to Yuma, and say, y'all will all get back together when you get released because you're coming as a family, you're going to get released, and these 2 kids, they're going to be separated and sent to a shelter, and you can sponsor them out later. That's what was happening on a regular basis. And then one other piece on the kids being used, there were still some older teens that would have actually been used to, mule narcotics across, and knowing that if they made it, the product got across. But if they got caught, there wasn't any U.S. attorneys that were prosecuting juveniles at the time. It's still a problem, but so yeah, they use them, number one, to make fake families, and number two, to use them to get narcotics and other contraband across. So again, all because of terrible policies out of Washington. It was an emotional topic to talk about immigration because everybody has an immigration story. But we are a nation of laws, and we have to uphold the laws. And when our policies, completely conflict with law, it sets up an environment for human exploitation. And that's what the Biden-Harris, Becerra-Mayorkas administration did. It put everybody on notice. Every transnational criminal organization was on notice to say, bring people to the border because they don't know what they're doing, and we're going to make money. And last thing I'll say on the money-making piece is while we were kicking kicking families and single adults back, the unaccompanied children were exempt to Title 42. So that's how the cartel knew how they can continue to profit and make money and exploit, because they could smuggle the kids up to the border, get them across, and still profit, because the cartels learned real quick that there was more money and no overhead with human smuggling as opposed to narcotics smuggling, because you got to make the narcotics, you got to get the narcotics up, and you got to get the funds back. Where with people, you just had to get them to the hole in the fence because Biden shut all the wall construction down on day one. Yeah.
Oh my God.
We do have a question here, Chris, from the chat. It's Norman C. says, what's your take on claims that Border Patrol agents were aiding and abetting illegal immigration under Biden? Many agents said that they were just following orders and doing their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, right? Because the optics are is you're catching them and you're releasing them. We were arresting everybody. We were processing everybody. We were taking the biometric data on everybody, fingerprints and photograph. But like I mentioned about that 24-hour immigration continuum, our job was to process and turn them over to the other agency. It was the other agency that refused to take them. What are we supposed to do? Continue to hold, tens and thousands of people in our parking lot? So we had the authorization, we had the legal authority to release. It's not what any agent wanted to do, but that was what we were forced to do, because otherwise you'd have thousands of people coming in that would just get away. So,
and I remember, Chris, when I got to El Paso, when the when the street releases started, is when those images went viral of all the Venezuela. It was around December, I think, 2022, of all the Venezuelan migrants scattered all over the alleys of downtown El Paso.
And what was inside
kids,
that?
There was kids like brushing their teeth with the water from the sidewalk, and I remember reporting on that, and then seeing all their court papers, and seeing that they didn't have court till 2027, 2028, 2029, and that started. I did actually, guys, want to play, so we kind of continue the conversation, keep it pushing forward.
But to that question, it sucked. It sucked for us to catch and release. We never wanted to do that, but we had no other choice at that point, because there was thousands a day coming across the border. So our hands were tied on top of hands being tied. I hated it, but that's why we have ICE, and that's why we need detention centers, and we need consequences for breaking the law.
I want to get the soundbite, guys, to kind of keep we'll keep this convo pushing forward. Producer Jerry, if we go to that Jorge media clips, it should be number 3. Trump admin looking for missing kids. Just for some context, guys, this is going to be John Frabatori. He is right now the head of ORR, the Office of Refugee Resettlement. This is the kind of the office that's taking a lot of heat for Becerra under Biden. And according to John, and John is actually someone that I've interviewed multiple times when I was working at News Nation. We work really closely on stories. John right now is one of the officials assigned to actually look for these missing kids under the Biden administration. So let's play that soundbite. If we can, producer Jerry, then we'll have a panel react here.
It has been publicized that we're looking. So for those that are, know that we're looking, they're hiding a little bit more, and it's a little bit more difficult. So yes, we are still on this mission. We are still looking for these children. But it's been very difficult because the information that we got from the Biden administration, the vetting that was done, the addresses that we got, the pictures, everything was a mess. There was a lot of fraud there.
And once again, that's John Frabatori. That interview actually just came out today. We're getting kind of some new information on that. Haley, I know you've done some reporting on the missing migrant children following the ending of Biden 2.0. Just maybe some of your reaction, and maybe some reaction to that new sound we have from John Frabatori. Essentially saying that they are finding kids, but obviously because of the investigation that it's he's saying it's becoming a bit harder because now that it's publicized.
Yeah, I mean, I started reporting on the missing migrant children back in early 2025. So the border was quiet, but there were the experts that I had talked to, said the same thing, that the kids were in the U.S. and there were a multitude of factors that they could have gone through. So they were dead, they were either with people, they were sex trafficked, or some believe that their organs were harvested, and that's why they were dead. So we decided to go down the sex trafficking route to see if, there was what that essentially looked like for kids. I went out to Dallas, worked with a group, went on a ride along called Shepherd's Watch Foundation. So I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they work with local police and then obviously federal agents if they come into the case. And it was, there was a spike that they saw during the Biden administration for kids, not just girls, but boys as well. And the difference that they said with those kids, which I thought was always interesting, was that they were the quieter ones. They were the ones that were okay with doing what they were asked to do because they had the cartel behind them, of the cartel threatening, saying, hey, if you don't complete your job as to what we ask you to do, your family's going to die back here. So you need to complete your years and then you're done. And so they were the ones... when I was talking to Shepherd's Watch, they were like, they're less likely to be on drugs. They're going to go in, go out eventually because they don't want to have the threats. The American kids, the American girls and the guys typically are the ones that are drugged up, laced up on stuff because they constantly have to be hooked on something in order to keep going. So yeah, I went down to Dallas and saw a couple of spots that they were talking about. I think... I've talked to Tara Rodas and covered the border doc that James O'Keefe did in 2023, 2024, something like that. But I always found it interesting how much of a mess it was internally when Tara first released her whistleblower information. Like you were saying, the DNA rolled back. I think it was some of the first executive orders really from the Biden administration. You saw a massive push against the border policies, and that was one of his first vows. And then you had, what Tara had talked about before lawmakers was you had these because of COVID policies, you didn't have face-to-face confrontations. You didn't have face-to-face meetings. You had Zoom meetings. And so you can imagine if you're having to Zoom someone and no one answers, they were like, okay, well, no answer. So guess we're good here. And so I think the troubling thing about her testimony and what she's stated multiple times was that the paperwork in itself was just such a mess. And I think during this time when I was reporting on it, I had tried to reach out to HHS to FOIA them to say, hey, like if there's any paperwork that we can find, like please hand it over. And then HHS pushed me back over to DHS. DHS pushed me back over to HHS. It was like this play game of like, we don't really have any paperwork because it's not going to come out.
I got to say, first of all, thank you for, doing what you were doing and seeing that. And again, thank everybody for keeping that. I have to comment. So I was the one that called John and said, will you come take my position? There you go. So John,
I like John a lot.
Yeah, John retired as the field operations director for ICE ERO in Aurora, Colorado, or Denver office there. He was well spoken, and Tom Homan and I had a conversation. He's like, "What do you think about John?" Because my only requirements was they couldn't be better looking than me, and so John was the guy.
And John has no hair.
And he's a like MMA guy. He's got cauliflower ears. And everything. I was like,
I want to say really quick, Chris, for the audience, just so our. So with John, when I was at News Nation, one thing John helped me out with crafting the stories was getting a lot of inside information on the Tren de Aragua presence in those apartments in Aurora, Colorado. John did a great job
100%.
on exposing that, getting videos, and about that whole Tren de Aragua causing all that mess.
Well, he was the right guy to. So when my job was to go in there and expose everything and create the team to go find the kids. We went through all hundreds of thousands of files. I mean that. So I brought the I call it the war room. I brought every 3-letter agency to the table, and we started going through all those files, all those fraudulent things to begin. Everything was a cold case. To Haley's point about the missing information, and because of Mayorkas saying you're not going to send any charging documents until after 120 days after the child's been placed with the sponsor, in John's soundbite, every case trying to find these kids is a cold case because we're working off bad information and sometimes zero information. So John did just under a year in that advisor position, and then he re-upped into another position working directly with the director of ORR. He's a hell of a guy. He's a true patriot because this is not fun to do, but he's in a very good position. I'm very glad.
He could be sipping pina coladas at the beach
He
right
could
now.
be, yeah.
But he's back in the fight.
America should be grateful for people like John to do that. When we were talking about the Venezuelans in El Paso a little while ago on the segment before we went to this, that was a problem because no one even heard of Tren de Aragua. And so when you're catching releasing families, back to the fake families when Anthony was asking that question. So these were fake families that were end up being the dad was a member of Tren de Aragua. And the non-government organization in El Paso had a great relationship with the NGOs in Aurora, Colorado. So imagine that. The Venezuelans came in El Paso, got process released, turned over to the NGO in El Paso, who took them on a bus or a plane to Denver, Colorado, and then they went to Aurora. Funny how you can just connect all those dots.
And also,
right?
Chris, talking about the border and everything, just for the context of the audience, when we were reporting on there and speaking with agents, one big issue they had with the Venezuelans was the Venezuelan government does not share the criminal background information with U.S. Border Patrol. So meaning when you are encountering these individuals, there's no criminal record. We don't even know if they're gang members back in Venezuela. We don't know if they killed someone back in Caracas. And Jose Ibarra is the perfect example of that. In 2023, Jose Ibarra crosses illegally into El Paso, Texas. He's encountered by Border Patrol agents. They run his background. He's obviously clean, but under the Biden administration, it's catch and release. So Jose Ibarra catches a free flight from El Paso, gets to New York. He stays at that Roosevelt Hotel that all of our tax dollars are paying for. He was getting drunk and high on U.S. tax dollar dime. And then that's when Eric Adams got so upset with all the migrants coming. That's when he did that program. He said, okay, we'll fly you out anywhere. You pick a location, but it can't be New York. And Jose Ibarra then takes that flight to Georgia. And then a few months later, he ends up killing Lincoln Riley in daylight.
Yep.
Jose Ibarra.
There's a lot to dissect right there, but I got to tell you.
His brother, too, is connected to that.
So Eric Adams' staff came to Yuma. We told them what was happening, this was coming to a city near you. So to their credit, he did send his team down there to see it, but they didn't listen and then turned around and was screaming at the mountain. First of all, he was like welcoming everybody. Then all of a sudden, he screamed. Then he screamed at the mountaintop, saying, no, no, no. Well, look. MFR, I told you this is what was going to happen. This is what I told you. I told you what was about to happen. This is coming to a city near you. And the other part that you touched on, and I'm so glad you did because I can't believe I skipped over this, is vetting.
Yep.
We heard so much from Mayorkas, and we hear from Becerra, everybody's vetted. Vetting is only as good as the system. Mm-hmm. And if you're not in the system, if you're in a country that doesn't share data, you want to know why we had travel bans under Obama and Trump continued is because we were with countries that did not have a verification system to notify who they were so we could know, is this person a part of state-sponsored terrorists, is it a murderer, whatever. So to your point, when we hear, everybody was vetted before they were released. No, they were fingerprinted and photographed, but if there was no record, it came back, no record found, so they were cleared. No derogatory information because they weren't in the system. It took vetting is actually going through lots of information. What's their family name? Give them your relative. All this, a lot of work needs to be done to vet somebody. But the misinformation that was put out there, that everybody was vetted. Let me tell you, it took longer to vet a career employee for a promotion in the Border Patrol than we were doing to vet people from countries that have known nexus to terrorism. Somebody that had 25 years in that was going to be promoted from a division chief to a deputy chief may take weeks to go through their entire personnel file, this kind of stuff to vet them. But if you came from Turkey and you didn't have any fingerprints that showed up as a criminal history, maybe the intel guy would verify that. But he was on a bus to ICE, and ICE like, well, we don't have any room for adult males, and there's no record. Let him go. And that bit us in the ass a couple times because FBI would come back 10 days later and say, hey, you still got this guy? And we're like, well, no, it was no derogatory information, no criminal history. Oh, yeah, but we did another follow-up, and this guy's actually wanted by Interpol. Well,
Holy
yeah,
crap.
well, yeah. Well, I had a standing order as deputy in El Paso and chief in Yuma. Anybody that was one of those, countries or came back with any history, they would be immediately prosecuted. The problem was under the Biden administration, because it would sometimes take 3, 4, 5 days for us to finally get to processing and identifying the criminal. The U.S. attorney's like, hey, you had the 48-hour rule. You arrested this guy on Monday, but you didn't find out who he was until Thursday. He's been in custody for 48 hours. We had to release him.
Holy.
So again, I think district courts would have said, okay, well, you didn't find this information out until you fingerprinted him. But again, it just goes back to the machine that was created to make it difficult for law enforcement to do their job, especially when it came down to border security, would just blow your mind how frustrating it was.
Yeah.
Somebody came back with a criminal history, but because he was waiting in line for 3 days to get processed, because we were catching 1,000 a day and we only had 200 agents, well, you didn't find out that he was a bad guy until too late, so you can't prosecute him.
So
It's insane, the machine.
we have a lot of questions in the chat. Before we get to them, though, Jorge, if you want to start scanning through them, but I did have a quick question for you. What do you think the purpose of all this was? Because I think a lot of people, kind of grab this information of the amount of people who are coming through. Then there were like viral videos. I actually have a good friend who lives here in SoCal. I don't know what state it was. I don't know if it was Arizona or Texas, where he was asking people, "What's your name and where are you? Where are you coming from?" And this guy seemed like an Arab guy and said like, "Oh, right now you don't know who I am, but pretty soon you will know who I am. Trust me." And the guy's like, "What are you talking about?" My reporter was like, "Wow, like such a sense of entitlement, like here you are saying like I should know who you are." But the guy had like a little entourage. He had like 3 or 4 other people with him. And they were kind of telling him like, "Hey man, shh, like be quiet." It almost seemed like we need to get inside first. Don't give them too much information. But the guy was basically like, "You will soon find out who I am, and not just you, but every American will know."
Even Scooby-Doo would find that as a clue.
Right? Yeah. But I mean, why do you think that this was allowed to happen? Do you think this was like a huge nefarious reason? Do you think that it's like a plot that still hasn't been underway? Like, what do you? I mean,
yeah, I mean, again, that's that $64,000 question because we all are reasonable and prudent people that think with common sense because no president of the United States, no cabinet secretary should ever want to knowingly, willingly do harm to this country. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's really hard for the brain to comprehend. Why would we do this? Why would we allow this to happen? Not only here in the country, but to the people that were being encouraged to come across that were being exploited. I would say there are two buckets that I just kind of can't figure it all out, but where I'll just make my statement. There's the big political one that if you remember under Trump 45, they started with the U.S. Census, had to be a U.S. citizen to be counted. Then Biden waived that, and it comes down to electoral votes and population to get more members of Congress and this and that. So if you can, again, theory, because no one's ever going to confess whether it, but if you had a strong blue area and you infuse 10,000 more people, you may get one more congressional rep there or during redistricting and things like that. So you can make it even more blue. If you have a purple area and you can infuse more people there and you maybe you can swing it to make it a blue seat. If it's red area and you infuse people, then maybe you can make it purple. So I think there's a political motivation to try to influence districting because if you infuse tens of thousands of people into Columbus, Ohio, they may redistrict and get more political positions. That would just be one political take. Then there's just the whole evil evil side that we've learned about what happens with human trafficking and sex trafficking. Organ harvesting, to your audience, is a real thing. It happens. It's not some B horror flick that's made, Hostel 17. It's actually what really goes on. And and so there's that evil side to the slave trade of what is human trafficking. That I think that there's evildoers clearly in this country and in positions of influence that were encouraging this kind of stuff, because there's just no common sense to say, especially when you learn what was happening. I'm not dismissing that the optics of feeling good and trying to help people out is not a real thing, and that's okay. But when you realize that lives are being lost, lives are being exploited, our tax dollars are being fleeced, you got to put a stop to it. But I just think that the two big buckets that I'm kind of stuck in would be the political motivation to try to influence districts and seats, and then just the flat out evil on this earth that is people are profiting off of humans. And I think that is the two buckets that I just can't figure out any other reason, because no reasonable and prudent person, no other country on this planet would allow for this kind of mass migration and abuse of their existing laws. And just again, go back to a very basic civics 101, 3 branches of government: the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the executive branch. And the legislative branch put all these laws into place. Congress, who complain about everything that's going on, it's their laws that the executive branch is executing. It's the authority given to the president, who's the CEO of the executive branch, who's implementing the laws. If Congress doesn't like what's going on, Congress can change the law. But how long have we been talking about? Since 1994, when Bill Clinton gave that State of the Union address talking about Barbara Jordan was commissioned on how bad illegal immigration is for this country. How we have got to shut the border. How the crime bill brought 5,000 more border guards. I was one of those guys hired under that in 1995. Barack Obama in the Democratic primary back in 2008 talked about how bad Bush was at managing the border, and 5 million people had come across. So this has been a political football or can that they've been kicking for decades because nobody wants to own it. And finally, we have an administration, Trump 2.0, that is saying, hey, enough is enough. Americans are hurting. Jobs are being lost. People are being exploited. This has got to stop. And so, again, I know a lot of people don't like the president and the way he does things, but he is bringing back a level of accountability and integrity to the laws that are on the books, that are passed by Congress, that have been on the books for decades. And Border Patrol's been around for 100 years. This isn't new. ICE was legacy customs, the oldest law enforcement agency since the 1700s. Customs was created. What does ICE stand for? Immigration and Customs Enforcement. None of this is new. All it is just they were created. ICE was created from legacy customs enforcement and legacy immigration investigators and put them together. And so this has been an ongoing problem. And again, I kind of got off on a rabbit trail there, but
No, you're good,
at the end of the day, I'll just go back to your question and I'll repeat myself. It's those two buckets. There's the evildoers, and then there's the political motivation to try to retain power. I mean, and if somebody has a better reason, let me know. But I just can't think of anything else. I want to be optimistic and not naive and say it's just for political, but I'm also aware that there are people, and we are learning through revelations of exposures of files and people being exonerated for eating, saying that there's an evil cabal out there and people are eating babies. Well, that's real. That kind of stuff goes on, and part of that is through that trafficking. Remember in the late 90s when they were finding dozens and dozens of women discarded in shallow graves in Juarez? What do you think was happening? That was organ harvesting. That was sex trafficking. Once these women are scarred, scratched, bruised, they're discarded. They're not let go on the streets to go live a happy life. They're murdered. I mean, this is information that convicted sex traffickers have revealed to other investigators and other reporters. And that's why when we talk about immigration, stop conflating lawful immigration practices and trying to bring the right people over through visas with enforcing the law to protect people. And that's what happens. Politicians are great at conflating the two topics to make it emotional and getting people fired up. What is political about protecting someone's life, whether it's a kid or an adult? It should be, it's the basic function of being human, is protecting other people. And we conflate these two when we're talking about border security and immigration. They're cousins, but they're different. They're not directly related, but they are directly related, but they're different. You know,
Joe.
that makes sense.
That's a great breakdown. Right now, guys, it is 9:29 local time here on the West Coast. Thursday show. Thank you, everyone, listening and rocking with us. We got producer Jerry back there in the ones and twos. We got a lot of live chats kind of coming in, and a lot of pro Chris chats in here. We got Don in Kansas saying, "I known Chris a lot of years. He's top tier smart and has tons of common sense." Don in Kansas following up with, "Tell him, Chris, preach." Redbear85 says, "I really like Chris. He is hitting his marker. I really learned a lot from him. Chris is very intelligent man." We got TBWY Studios. Want to thank Chris for helping me realize how dumb my tios and tias are for wanting to abolish ICE. TBW says, "Jorge trying to avoid the chat." Typical. No, we're having a great conversation
Jorge
here.
gave me a coffee on top of my coffee, so I just kept going. So I apologize
fault.
for taking
No,
over.
you're good. You're good.
We love caffeine around here. We got It's Norman C says, "I used to get super pissed seeing illegal immigrants post on TikTok on how to become home squatters." I remember those videos.
Oh, yeah.
Those were
I
viral.
remember those
yeah.
ones too.
Holy smokes. Share
We
it
did
with the
we did
$2.
get it kind of, we got like, I've never seen this before, guys, but we got like a super chat that was like an alarm that said "Unk Alert." So
So I actually had to look that up. I looked
I
that
don't know.
up.
You had
So
to
what
look it up?
well, we don't know
That's
what
why it's Uncle Alert.
Yeah.
Because
Oh my
I'm Uncle.
gosh.
So what it is
Yeah, what-
people can buy different types of currencies on YouTube. So what people did was
Oh.
they bought 400 and there's different levels. So if you want to send like a sticker, they're called like jewels. I think it came from like the TikTokers.
Dear God.
Got it,
That's
got
what
it.
did.
So-
And so I learned that 440 YouTube jewels was what they used to buy that sticker Unk status.
Got it.
And it translates to about $3. So
Awesome.
it's a $3 donation.
Well, thank you guys for the super chat. We got Run with Kurt saying, "I love when people have actual on the ground experience and show what was actually happening during this first hand day to day." So yeah, so a lot of people liking the on the ground experience. Run with Kurt also following up with Mari testing. Hell yeah, he is not the father. Get him out of here. I think he was talking about when we were talking about the DNA testing. Sharon says, "Again, great guest." Truth Seeker 33 says, "Respect for Chris, common sense in the room." Red Bear sending a W super chat. Thank you guys so much for joining in. It is 9:32. Producer Jerry, if we could go to that latest link I just sent. Click the link, bro, but then under the tweet is the actual video. This is some context because we are still talking about border and kind of the ins and outs. We do have to touch on the viral video, guys, coming out of Spain of all those Moroccan migrants crashing the Spain coast. Can we play that video, Jerry? We have it? Let's play it. I think I could talk. Yeah, you guys see madness. Morocco. There's just some insane scenes. This clip was really making the rounds all over X today. And then, Jerry, if we can actually click out and we could go to the Bovino tweet. If not, it's not a big deal. But if we go to the Bovino tweet, I'm going to read. So this is from Gregory Bovino. He's saying, quote, "Look at Spain right now. Their leftist government waved a hand and handed citizenship to 1 million illegals to lock in a permanent voting majority. The second they did it, the third world got the message and poured in. Amnesty is not compassion. It's a magnet. Democrats will do the same here, importing millions of guaranteed voters, and Republicans will sell us out for cheap labor. You want America to look like Spain? Keep calling amnesty compassion. It's suicide." Anthony, what's your reaction to Bovino reacting to the
Somebody wrote that for
viral the viral video out of Spain?
No, I mean, I'm a huge Gregory Bavino.
He's my friend. Greg's my friend. That's why I said that. But I the whole time you were reading Greg, I was doing it in his North Carolina Appalachia accent. Ambersley is not. I love Greg. But I'm sorry, Anthony. I
you're good. You're good. On this show, I'm the Gregory Bavino stand. I hope one day I can we can have him on the show. He's a SoCal guy, right? Isn't he like
SoCal, El Centro, kind of that area?
Yeah.
Originally.
I tried reaching out on Twitter. He all he did was like the comment, and I was like,
I will. I know how to get a hold of him. I'll see what I can do. If
thank
at least
you so
get
much.
maybe a dial in or whatever.
Yeah. No, that
He
would be
probably
great.
saw your last name. Was like, we should deport him.
Kabasa? Come on, man. That's European.
He's like, doesn't that mean head? A big old head? No, that's
Yeah. No, I mean, you know what's so crazy is I've been seeing the videos of Spain, and then what ends up happening is the population, they're seeing all this happen. They start putting barbed wire around their windows and their balconies and stuff like that. And I'm like, why are they doing that? And it's like, I guess it's racist to assume they're just going to start barging in. But sure enough, a couple hours later, these people are started breaking into homes and they're starting stealing stuff and all that stuff. And so I'm like, well, I guess it's better to be racist than not racist, or make the assumptions that they're just going to come in here and loot. And sure enough, that's exactly what they've done. There's even videos coming out of them lighting cars on fire already. And so it's nighttime over there right now. They're still pouring in by the thousands. And so I started getting wind of it early in the morning. Bill Malusian has been doing a great job just kind of posting and reposting, obviously. But I think like the biggest takeaway for me is that I'm looking at these videos and immediately I'm like, dude, this was our border. Like every single day for years. And and people in Europe, I'm like, we've never seen anything like this. This has never happened before. The fact that this started early in the morning and it's still continuing through the night, and like Spain's government is standing down, all this stuff, people are speculating what's happening. Here's what went wrong. The military went to the wrong spot. Here's why it's not as easy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, dude, this was really, I started thinking immediately, all your videos, the videos I started looking through all my 2021 videos of just thousands of migrants every single day. I'm like, dude, this was really, I guess when you're going through it, you're just kind of like, well, this is just it. But then you reflect back.
I guarantee though, as bad as that Spain video is today, there were more Haitians that crossed in Del Rio in 2021.
Oh yeah, there's no.
17K.
I mean, I haven't.
It doesn't beat 17K.
I haven't seen all the videos. I gotta confess, I turned down speaking on that on a national network today because I had committed to coming here.
Hey,
there we go. Well, now you can talk about it here.
Yeah, there you go. So we can talk about it here. But all jokes aside, first of all, thank you for the kind words on the comment. I appreciate that. And
they love you in the chat, Chris. You got to come back, bro.
I appreciate that. And an open invitation. I will to you. Have me back whenever. Looks like I'll be back in LA quite often for the next few months anyway. So
you got to bring tequila next time though.
I can do that. I'm more of a whiskey guy, but we can do that.
Okay,
right?
We can do that. We can do a trade off.
But I will say this. All jokes aside, Greg's tweet is very, very on point. This is what happens when you think what we call it, suicidal empathy.
Yeah.
You're trying so hard to do the right thing, but you don't realize the consequences. So now Spain is feeling that, and the people involved are feeling it. And it is reminiscent to what happened in the Biden administration. Look, Del Rio had close to 19,000 people come across in less than 96 hours. I don't know what the total number is of what's going on there in Spain right now, but that was a shitload of people coming through.
And if you remember, Chris, when the 19,000, I remember this, were under the bridge.
Yeah.
Many of the Haitian women were pregnant. They were having babies under the bridge.
We had 3 in a lettuce field.
Yep.
In December of 2021, come across right before midnight. All 3 of them went into labor. 2 were born. One was born, delivered a child in the ambulance to the hospital. The other 2 delivered at the hospital. One was life-flighted with the child to Phoenix and was in the hospital for 3 months before the mom was released. So again, you know who paid for all that? We did.
Yep.
So back
And those
to
kids are all American citizens.
Yes, that's-
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
back to the
There's probably like 5 Haitian kids right now with the name Del Rio.
Yeah, and-
they were born under the bridge.
Yeah.
They don't know that.
So, and a couple with middle name Yuma, because some were born in
Good.
Yuma. But back to the specific to the Haitians, and you saw it in Del Rio, I saw it in Yuma. They had immigration documents from Chile in South, all in South. They had these. The politicians will try to let you this temporary protected status, all this nonsense. The politicians will try to tell you that, they can't go back to Haiti. These people hadn't been in Haiti in 7 years. Many of them. They had been.
They're speaking Spanish better than me.
Yes, a lot of them left Haiti to go build. When was the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro? Like 2012 or 14. That's when that.
It was 14, I think.
They went there to help build. They were looking for jobs and work, and then they stayed there and they were discarded. So they lived in South America and took that long journey up through Central America and into Mexico. They weren't like just leaving Haiti. They had been residents of Chile and other countries in South America for almost a decade before they came north. And we had that big push because we were excluding Haitians. They were part of Title 42. Then there was a window when the brain trust in the Biden office said, well, we're gonna allow these Haitians they'll be excluded from Title 42. So they all made a mad rush. That's when we had thousands come across in Yuma. We just had the 19,000 of them in.
I remember Chris
it's
at
crazy,
across Del Rio in Sura Acuña in Mexico. There were so many Haitians that they ended up setting up like a little village, and they were transporting supplies through the water to the American side. And I've just never seen.
Well, that's where the whipping incident occurred because they were robbing. Right. One of the guys was robbing one of the ladies. So for the audience, there was camps set up on the Mexican side of the river selling food because they were all kind of staged there, right there at the border underneath that bridge. And what was happening is this female went back to get some food with their kid. And when she came across, this guy came and grabbed it from her. That's when the horse patrol came down and tried to get him away. And they used the split reins to control the horse. And of course, that was the big lie where Biden said that they were whipping, and Mayorkas said they were whipping, and Harris said they were whipping. You know what? That was to distract from the utter failure of 19,000 people crossing the border in 72 hours under Joe Biden. But let's talk about the big bad border patrol.
The big lie.
Yeah.
The big whipping lie.
Yeah.
We got we got TBW Studio saying, if Haley doesn't talk, we got a lot of let Haley talk.
No,
Guys.
I'm gonna shut up.
We are swinging.
Hold on.
We are swinging to that side. Okay,
At
Haley.
the advice of my attorney, I can no longer talk.
We're swinging to Haley. So some of the
Please
chat wants to hear from Haley. We're going to go to Haley. Haley, why should we deport all the Haitians? Go.
I mean, I was going to say that earlier you had said what country would do this to themselves. Spain would.
Yeah.
Spain is obviously one of the ones that are allowing themselves to do this. I think it's just interesting your perspective on kind of going back to Anthony's question earlier of the two options that you kind of gave of the politics behind it and also the human trafficking side behind it, the money-making side. And it's interesting to me because I was thinking back, like Clinton was against illegal immigration. Obama was against illegal immigration. I mean, he had one of the highest deportation numbers of his time. And we'll see if Trump gets that as well. But it almost makes me wonder along the way there, because Democrats definitely benefit off of illegal immigrants being able to vote. California has definitely had an issue. They won't hand over their numbers to the federal government. We have a lot of issues with Prop 50, with mapping. And we see it very well out here in the state specifically. But it makes me think if Democrats along the way just were kind of like, you know what, Congress is never going to fix this issue, so let's use it to our advantage. And also a part of that, one of my sources when I was when I was researching and working on the missing migrant children, one of their big issues, and it wasn't Shepherd's Watch, it was another source completely different, was saying that there were so many politicians that were mixed up within the sex trafficking, whether they were aware that it was a minor that they were doing things with. That profiting side kind of makes me wonder how deep it goes. How much are those ties there to what they get benefits out of in this country?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that, because again, if people weren't involved, and again, I don't know anybody that would be doing that, but it begs the question, why haven't they fixed it? It's because somebody's going to get exposed. Somebody's little fetish is going to be exposed, or they're not going to have the opportunity. It goes back to, there's the good and the bad, and there's the really ugly, and that's what this whole thing has become. It's really a shame, and I do believe that there's a reckoning coming at some point in regards to this. Now, whether it's Epstein, whether it's human trafficking, whether it's exposing the missing migrant children, but there's people and this is not Captain Obvious here, but there are people in power that are so deep into this that they're doing everything they can to keep from being exposed. And I do believe that if President Trump had like the all that information right now, he's going to expose it. He's going to use it to his advantage, but he's going to expose it. So I really hope that happens. And I think that's where most of America sits. I don't care if you're a diehard Republican, but if there is a diehard Republican that's involved in sex trafficking and abusing little boys and little girls, or eating harvested organs, hang that son of a gun.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the majority of Americans sit. This popped up, and I when we were talking about Yuma and the Haitians and all that stuff, I don't know. When we talk about border security, it is national security. It's actually I was the first person to tweet that. Border security is national. Not Commissioner Scott. He likes to claim it, but you can go back to my deputy chief Twitter in February of 2020 when I've got the receipts. But let me tell you, it's not just all the people, it's what happens. Case in point, Yuma. Yuma, Arizona is responsible for 95% of the, it depends on which farmer you talk to, but it's like 95% of the green leafy vegetables, the lettuces, the spring mixes, all the kale that Americans eat from October to April in parts of Canada. It comes from Yuma, Arizona. That's how big of production that is. And when you have illegal aliens crossing the border, urinating, defecating, leaving dirty diapers in those fields, the farmers by law, have to cut all that section up. Like for every foot of exposure, it's like 10 feet, and somebody can find the actual number. But there were literally millions of dollars lost, if not more, because of that border crisis right there just in Yuma alone. And, that's a food safety issue. We're dealing with explosive diarrhea because of lettuce packaged in Mexico right now. Thank goodness that didn't happen, that an epidemic didn't happen. Maybe it did. We were too busy with the pandemic going on to know, because it would have been a COVID symptom, because they would never tell you it was because of Haitian baby diapers in the lettuce. But this goes back to how border security impacts every one of us. It's more than just immigration. The farmer, the migrant farm workers, they can't get paid. They can't work if there's no lettuce to harvest because they had to till up a field. The farmers were losing money because of a failed border policy.
I remember that.
Yeah, that's why this is not as simple or as easy to dismiss as it's just build the wall. It's important to protect our food. It's important to protect our community. It's important.
Chris, you got to tell this to your fellow whites. You got a portion. You got a portion of your fellow whites that want to abolish borders now.
Oh man,
with the DSA.
You know what? Those aren't my friends. I can tell you, in my inner circle, there are a lot of people that are aligned with me for sure. There's a lot of people that are kind of middle. They call themselves moderate Democrats now that understand this, but like so many, they won't be vocal. They won't be. That's what I'm hoping, is that the silent majority will show up in November to make sure that we get the right people in state and local offices, and at least hold both, at least one of the chambers. We can't lose them both. And when it comes down to our federal representatives, because I think there's a lot of people that are seeing these DSA and these progressive socialist communists that are, as much as I feel sorry for the citizens of Spain, not necessarily the government, but that's coming to an American border near us if these DSA people get in and the Democrat, progressives get in charge because they want to abolish all this stuff. Yeah. It goes back to, it's why that food safety issue was important. Yeah. Because the very thing that keeps us healthy could be destroyed with an open border mindset, because they'll replay 2021 and 2022 all over again.
Oh man, let's go through some of the chats, guys. Thank you guys, everyone. 9:49 here, local time. Thank you. We got Red Bear 85 says, I am white, Jorge. Chris and I love whiskey. Let's go. We got
Don't forget Sharon's question.
We got Sharon.
Yeah, she's asked twice.
Yeah. So she keeps asking, what are your thoughts on San Antonio?
I don't know.
I don't know what that means. All I know is I lived in San Antonio for 3 years, and it's torta capital of the world. I don't know if she's also talking about San Antonio in the connection to the border crisis. Yeah. What I know really quick, and we'll just touch on it quickly because I want to get to what Chris is working on. But San Antonio was kind of like the transportation hub. What I say, right, Chris? Any migrants that crossed in Texas, they would bring them up to some of the holding facilities or one of the NGOs up there. Then from there, they'll literally just get them to an airport, or literally just get them to Houston or Dallas. So San Antonio was essentially the transportation hub for a lot of the migrants that came to the through the Del Rio sector. So
True Seeker, I actually kind of like this comment, but I don't know if Chris, if you want to chime in. It says, one last comment: Republicans also benefit from illegal immigration and cheap labor.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you think about it. We have created a system that incentivizes employers to hire under the table, because it's so difficult to hire people if you don't have. Look. This to me is again, take the extreme right. Not you. You can always be there, but the extreme right, extreme right, extreme left. Go on extreme recess and have the common sense lawmakers sit in a room with community leaders, academia, medicine, engineers, scientists, all that, and say, what is it that you need? But let's just focus on agriculture. Why should a farmer have to go through 3 or 4 federal agencies, spends tens of thousands of dollars to recruit people from another country, and still may not even be able to get those people because of overregulation by Congress and even the Biden administration? They made it very, very difficult for people to get the workers. Now, look, I'm an American first person. But if you're a small business owner, a rancher, or startup company, and you cannot find American workers to do the job you need in your community, and you can't bring them from other parts of the United States, why should you go into debt or lose your family farm or go on default on your small business loan because you can't get workers, because Congress has overregulated it, made it so difficult? So you know what you do is you pay a guy cash who knows a guy that's going to bring 10 people over next week to help you farm your field. We have created a system that really incentivizes that. Republicans are guilty of it just like the Democrats are. I think the Republicans do it more from making the money, where the Democrats are doing it more about the exploitation side. Just my opinion. But both sides are guilty for 50 plus years of not fixing this problem. But again, to make America great, it's our strong military, it's our strong domestic policing, and it's our economy. If we fail the economy and small businesses and farmers and ranchers lose their livelihood because we cannot come up with a simple solution to recruit people, sponsor the right people to do the jobs that 18-year-olds that are graduating high school are not going to go do, whether that's picking in the fields or changing out bedpans in hospitals. Why should we fail when we have people that would be willing to come over and do that to make a better life for themselves? I think you target 1 or 2 sections of our visa system, and you find that way we can focus on building our economy, helping others from around the world come here for the right reasons, assimilate and work, make small business grow, make our economy stronger, and then it's much easier to just go after all the bad guys.
So what do you say to people though? Because I've had this argument with some people where they're like, we wish that the farmers would stop hiring illegals because Americans would be lining up out the door to take these jobs over these illegal immigrants. I personally see it as I don't think Americans, the moment they turn 18, they want to go clean hotels, they want to go clean toilets. They can't wait to work at McDonald's, low wage job. They can't wait to work 12-hour shifts at a farm for minimum wage.
Yeah.
I'm personally like, I don't know if I see that, but there are some people. I've got this guy, Paul, I go back and forth with on my Telegram. He insists that like Americans would be lining out the door to just like, if illegals were just fired, that Americans would be lining up to work the fields and pick crops.
I would say that I wish it would be the truth.
Yeah,
I don't believe that there are 18-year-olds that graduating high school that would line up to go pick in the fields. I don't believe that there are 18-year-olds that are going to line up to go work in hospice care and nursing homes and do all that stuff. I think that there is a migrant population from around the world that wants a bite at the American dream, that be willing to do some of that, difficult work. I'm not ruling out that good parenting would tell somebody, hey, if you're not going to go to college, then you're going to work and you're going to have to go, you don't have the experience, so you're going to have to go get experience. And it may be in the field. It may be changing bed linens at a nursing home. But until we don't have enough jobs to hire people, we should not limit our opportunities for American business owners to recruit people if we don't have people here in the States. Again, America first, but America first is about taking care of America, and that may include bringing people over that meet all the requirements, that have been truly vetted. I'll wait 2 or 3 months to vet somebody if it keeps me from having all my crops from being spoiled. I'll wait 2 or 3 months if it keeps me from losing my small business loan because I didn't have the technology people here in my small town that could do what I need to do. So I think there's a balance that could be struck, but don't let Washington dictate what rural America needs. Let rural America from the top up go through their local mayor and say, this is what I need. Go to their state governor's office and say, this is what I need. Go to your U.S. rep and say, this is what I need. And then Washington makes those rules and brings it to the people. That's how it has to happen. It has to be the ground up telling Washington what they need when it comes down to migrant workers. And I think you don't tackle the visa program from Alpha to Zulu. You focus on the one area that means the most, that people are hurting, and that's going to be in that labor area and in the difficult jobs like agriculture and some of the hospitality.
Guys, we got 4 minutes left on the show. Just want to say thank you to everyone who's stayed in and listened throughout the entire night. Thank you guys
4
so
minutes
much.
to Haley, right?
we got some super chats here, so I'm going to read some of the chats. We got some questions really quick. Chris, we got Isaac Hernandez who says, "So the beard, Chris. I need tips. I'm trying to look like Santa too." What do you got for Isaac Hernandez?
So this is because I got cast for an independent, non-Hollywood, non-SAG Viking movie. Okay, so the cameraman said, the director said, "Can you grow your beard?" I use beard oil and beard balm. Okay,
It looks good.
Yeah,
It looks
and I just
good.
growing it. Thank you.
It looks good. We got Beast 2099 says, "Make the prisoners work the fields." Jose Vasquez joined us a little late,
Hell
4720, saying, "What did I miss?" LOL, Jose, you missed a lot, but it's a great show, especially with Chris. He broke down a lot, especially from the Border Patrol angle, but you could always go back and stream the entire show. We got Truth Seeker 33 dropping 3 Spain emojis. We got Truth Seeker also saying, "Bring Chris back, guys. Good night." Thank you. Richard Sweet 7842 says, "That's another thing about Americans. They want $20 an hour while migrants still work for food." Let's see, we got a lot of beards, huh? People are liking the beard.
Hey, so if nothing works out for me, if you have a department store this holiday season that is looking for a Santa, I got the hat.
Thank you. TBWY Studios. wants to learn my workout routine. A lot of carne asada and push-ups, and heartbreak. That'll do it to you. Thank you guys. We got 2 minutes. Actually, Chris, I wanted to ask you while we have 2 minutes left. It looks like you'll be back in California quite often. Just if you want to let people know what you're working on, if you want to.
Yeah. So the Steve Hilton, who's running for governor here in California, he and his team reached out to me, him personally, asked me to assist him in the campaign as it relates to the missing migrant children and how Javier Becerra was responsible as the head of HHS during that time. And because it is something near and dear to my heart, and all jokes aside, we had a lot of fun tonight, but it is a serious issue. And I'm really hoping that people in California take to heart that that the person that is a leading candidate has caused so much heartbreak and tragedy that I can only imagine what would happen if he was in charge of the biggest state in the union, right? So I'm here bringing the facts to Steve. He's the politician, not me. I'm just bringing the facts based on what I observed firsthand as a Border Patrol chief and what I observed firsthand in the Trump administration, exposing that and just, again, trying to help him because I think he is the right person to help lead California into the future.
And then, Chris, we got to have you back on and have all your expertise and give us all the latest and greatest. Haley, any last words before we sign off here? It's 9:59.
I think California.
All right, thank you, Haley.
No, don't do that, bro. Redbeard 85 did say that if Anthony interrupted Haley, you would have to fast for 40 days. My boy can't even fast he can't even fast for 40 minutes.
No. Yeah.
Haley, you got to talk a lot. People want to hear from you.
I'm so sorry.
Speech.
I think California is the root of all causes, especially under the Biden and Harris administration. If you really want to go down a rabbit hole, Harris is from California. Becerra is also from California. If you look at our policies.
Both attorney generals from California.
Yes, they are not great. So a lot of our policies were the blueprint, I think, of the Biden administration. He talked about policies for crimes and not taking track of those. You can see those very well throughout California, especially the history and the supermajority. Reporting wise, though, we are dropping a piece about glyphosate within the creeks and the waterways throughout Orange County. The county was unable to do the testing, so we took it upon ourselves to do the testing. And lo and behold, we found some stuff that is pretty interesting, which is in the Maha vein.
Yeah.
So, yeah, super excited for that.
Anthony?
Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate you guys, and we will be back next Tuesday. But where can people find you, Chris?
So on my Instagram is Chris Clem Official, and then on my Twitter is also Chris Clem Official. And I'm not always as active as I'd like to be, but I do retweet, I do comment, and I will be doing more as we move into the upcoming
Becerra tapes.
The Becerra tapes, yes.
The Becerra tapes.
And look, again, thank you so much. This was really, it's been a crazy but fun week, and it really kind of capped off with this show. You all were great. Thank you for inviting me in and making me part of the team tonight. And shout out to everybody that
it's a different flow, bro, from a network TV, huh?
Oh, I love it. I am really excited. I don't want to overextend my welcome, but I can't wait to come back again.
Let's go.
Yeah.
You're not welcome unless you bring a lot of whiskey, all right?
I can do that. I can do that.
And maybe Gregory Bovino next time.
Yeah, there you go.
Bring him with you.
Yeah.
Guys, we have a lot of explosive stuff coming up these next weeks. If you guys been following me and Anthony, you guys know the social media. It's been a crazy 72 hours to say the least. And since Anthony and I's coverage from Monday, we were getting numerous of potential insider whistleblowers within these migrant facilities that want to actually expose Javier Becerra. I actually verified a whistleblower today, a sightseer who was a site supervisor from a huge facility out in Texas. He was in charge of over 1,500 kids and has a huge breakdown, and there's some CIA contracts in there too. But we're gonna have a lot of CIA whistleblower content coming up, a lot of reporting. We're following the campaign. I'm assuming, Chris, you'll probably be back on. We're gonna hit hard on the Becerra tapes and all that good stuff. A lot of good stuff. So thank you guys, everyone, for joining. We had a lot of people from the East Coast watch. We got it's 1 a.m. over here. Thank you guys, East Coast watchers. Thank you guys. Buenas noches todos. Beast 29. Thank you guys. Red Bear, Sophia, Sharon, gracias. Producer Jerry, hard work in the 102s. Gracias. Thank you guys. We'll see you Tuesday. That was good, right?
You were phenomenal. You were. I mean,